Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
You're listening to the Roaring Repeater podcast on 7220sports.com. Here's Cody.
All right, guys, today we are breaking down the Montana State Bobcats, the Cowboys' first opponent of the season, September 4th, War Memorial Stadium. Of course, the return of Brent Vigen, the Cowboys' former offensive coordinator. We're stoked today to be joined by Colton Poole of the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. Excuse me, Colton. Thanks for taking some time to join us, pal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, so let's go back a year ago. I'm really interested in this, Colton. This time a year ago, can you put into words what it was like to not have college football in Bozeman, Montana?
Yeah, different, strange, something missing. It really was just an odd time on a lot of levels, and obviously not having college football was one of those reasons. You know, Bobcat Stadium is usually packed with tens of thousands of people any given Saturday during the fall, and then suddenly it was just empty. You know, so this sport that brings all these people together, especially at a time that when, you know, we were all going through such unique challenges, you know, it was just something missing, and it was a bummer, really. And, you know, understandably why, you know, things didn't work out, that they didn't have a season. Obviously, the FBS having a season and the FCS essentially deciding to play during the spring, except for Montana State, among other schools. But yeah, just odd. And I'm so as someone who got into this profession to cover football and cover sports, I'm really excited that it's back.
Why did Montana State decide not to go ahead last year, Colton?
Well, you know, the Big Sky as a whole decided to not play during the fall, and I think most, if not the entire FCS, didn't play a full fall schedule. And I think one of the biggest reasons was when the NCAA came out with its testing procedures or guidelines for COVID. A lot of the schools at this level didn't have the resources or capabilities to keep up with those guidelines, all the testing, all of the everything else that went into the NCAA requirements. I just think I don't think it was feasible at the time. And granted, mid-major schools, including MSU, was able to pull off basketball, but so it didn't really make much sense during the fall. And then during the spring season, you know, MSU wasn't able to really feasibly pull that off because they would have had to have been they don't have an indoor facility, so they wouldn't have had the resources to really practice during the winter, because otherwise they're practicing for hours on any given day in negative temperatures,
right?
Before the spring. So yeah, it was just kind of a weird time, I think, for MSU to have tried to pull off the season. Then, of course, Brent Vigen coming over as head coach, around that time, they would have had, I think, a couple weeks if they had tried to play their spring opener in late February with a new head coach. So I think it worked out that they weren't playing a spring season, and now they kind of have their legs, their health, fully ready to go for this 2021 season.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my next thing here. Fast forward to February, Montana State hires Brent Vigen away from Wyoming. Of course, Vigen was here for 7 years under Craig Bull. Long time before that with Bull at North Dakota State and Fargo. What were your initial thoughts when they hired Brent Vigen?
Well, I probably had a little bit unique perspective because I actually went to college at North Dakota State when Vigen was offensive coordinator there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I had watched his offenses with Brock Jensen, who was previously the all-time winningest quarterback at the FCS level, and you know, obviously knew of the work that he did with Carson Wentz. Granted, that was before he became a starter, but he recruited him and coached him. So, I was pretty familiar with him and what he did with Wyoming as well over there with Josh Allen. And, of course, that's kind of the thing that the highlight of his career is working with quarterbacks of that level. But, I was familiar that he was still a kind of a run-first play caller and a coordinator for all of his, an assistant coach for all of his career. This is his first time head coaching gig. So, but the whole coaching search was kind of a unique situation because MSU, I think, had targeted 3 to 4 candidates to be the head coach, and then things fell through before they eventually landed on Vigen. And I know MSU was still pretty excited. In fact, when Jeff Choate, the previous head coach, was in talks to possibly become the Boise State head coach, Vigen was a name that had come up within MSU circles to possibly replace Choate, and that was well before he even left. And of course, he didn't even get that job. He left to become the co-defensive coordinator at Texas. So, but I think that's an indicator of, Vigen was always kind of on the radar at MSU, and the stars kind of aligned that he came here, and he kind of fits, I think, what MSU was trying to do previously. MSU is a very run-heavy team. Run the ball, stop the run kind of team. And obviously his knowledge with quarterbacks is well documented. And I think that was kind of the missing ingredient under Choate, was finding consistent quarterback play. And I think MSU now hopes that they can find that with Vigen.
We're talking to Colton Poole here, Montana State beat writer for the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. Colton, speaking of offense, speaking of quarterbacks, which, like you mentioned, Vigen has definitely been known for, Matthew McKay, North Carolina State transfer, comes in, wins the job over the incumbent Tucker Rovig this spring. What have you seen from McKay so far, and how is Rovig handling the demotion?
Yeah, I think McKay, it's tough to say exactly what he's going to bring to the table, because even though he transferred following the 2019 season, he still hasn't played a single game. And even his action at NC State was pretty limited. Mm-hmm. And Vigen has even alluded to that McKay will be more involved in the run game than he was at NC State. So, and us as reporters and journalists, we've seen a little bit of that during scrimmages, but we haven't gotten to see beginning to end practices during fall camp here. So it's tough to say exactly what he will bring, because that run part is going to be so involved with his game. Mm-hmm. But I will say that at NC State, and even during these scrimmages and during these practices, I think one thing that stands out to me is the getting used to, or meshing with the rest of the offense. I think talking to his teammates, they are kind of rallying around McKay, and his accuracy. There's been great moments there with the intermediate and short routes, and even the deeper routes. But then there's also been there's ups and downs there as he's getting used to the new offense, the new playbook, and everything else. So I think kind of it could go either way. McKay could be really good, or he could be kind of trying to figure things out as they go to start the season. And as far as Tucker Rovig, Vigen has kind of alluded to that position is kind of open. If McKay struggles, then maybe we do see Rovig at some point during the season. And talking to Tucker a little bit, he's been in such a unique situation where his redshirt freshman year, he goes into fall camp in a quarterback battle, doesn't get the starting job, but then eventually does start a couple games to replace an injured Troy Anderson. Mm-hmm. In 2019, he goes into fall camp in a quarterback battle. Casey Bauman is the day one starter, not Rovig. But then eventually, Rovig kind of establishes himself as the more reliable quarterback and starts, I think, the last 10 games or so. And then he goes into this fall camp or this spring and isn't named the starter. So talking to him, he really seems dedicated to trying to be himself, to be just reliable and be the best that he can be on any given snap, on any given practice, and try to prove to the coaches that they can turn to him at any point. So and they still have Casey Bauman, who was, like I said, the day one starter in 2019, started, I think, 3 games that season. And so they have plenty of experience at that position. It's just whether it's just to be determined, I guess, what exactly MSU is going to expect out of that position, especially with McKay and the dual threat that he brings.
Yeah, sounds like a good problem to have.
Yeah.
We all know that Brent Vigen loves to pound the football. Wyoming fans know that more than anybody, but MSU really has some horses up front to get that done, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it all starts up front with MSU's offensive line. They were to return 4 multi-year starters, but then Connor Wood, their tackle, transfers to Missouri. So now they still bring back 3 guys, and probably a couple of which who have pro hopes in Lewis Kidd at left tackle and Taylor Tuiasosopo at right guard, and then Zach Red at the other guard spot. And they have a couple guys that they're really happy with with Cole Sane at center and TJ Session at right tackle at the moment. We'll see how those position battles shake out. But no, they have plenty of running backs that they can turn to. Isaiah Alphonse is the starter among them. He rushed for over 1,000 yards as a freshman, broke the school's freshman rushing record, and then missed a few games in 2019, but then still broke, I think, the program's playoff rushing record. So obviously kind of a known player and a known element to what MSU wants to do, and they'll turn to him quite a bit, especially in close games and games that they're leading. They're going to want to give Isaiah a lot of the carries. But then they bring plenty of guys who have experience and talent. The backup right now is Elijah Elliott. He's a redshirt freshman. So he hasn't gotten a ton of looks, but watching during fall practices here, he is very talented, very skillful, very fast, and smart kid as well. And then Lane Sumner is a guy who he's had carries at MSU in 19, and then Demarius Hosey and Jahari Martin. All those guys have gotten playing time and have shown moments of potential. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they can get all of those guys involved, and because I'm sure with Vigen here, they're going to want to run the ball a lot, and so they're going to have plenty of carries to go around.
Definitely. No Travis Johnson, no Kevin Cassis at wide receiver. Who is McKay going to throw the ball to, Colton?
I think the name that you're going to want to look out for is Jaden Smith. He's a redshirt freshman, but he's 6'5" and has shown great athletic potential. He had during his redshirt season, one of his games that he was able to play without burning his red shirt, he had a 47-yard touchdown catch, and I think that was just a glimpse of what he can do. Like I said, very athletic and a great target for someone like McKay, or any of these quarterbacks. And then, of course, Lance McCutcheon, he's played throughout his career, I think, since he was a freshman, and has shown he can be a guy that McKay can turn to. And then, there's a kind of a few other guys. Coy Steele was a pretty reliable target in 2019 out of the slot. Willie Patterson, is a guy who he's played pretty well, but that's only when he's healthy and has missed quite a few games. So if he can put a healthy season together, I think he'll be pretty exciting to see what he can do. And then MSU's tight ends with Vigen and with this new coaching staff, Taylor Housewright coming in as offensive coordinator, they want to get the tight ends a little bit more involved in the pass game as well, and there's plenty that they have at that position. So, and then of course the running backs probably a little bit involved in the passing game as well. So I guess we'll just have to see. Like I said, it's kind of unknown exactly what their approach is going to be on offense. Of course, run first, but how they're going to want to pass, or what routes or to what receivers. But I think, especially at the top of that list, I think Jaden Smith I would probably be my pick for MSU's 2021, to lead the team in receptions and receiving yards.
Yeah, I tell you, Wyoming fans are not going to be very happy, Colton, if they come out and throw a lot to the tight end and the running backs. That's not something that's happened in Laramie very often over the last couple of years. But a guy's name that you mentioned, Troy Anderson, just wow, what an all-world guy. This dude played quarterback, running back, now linebacker, and not only did he play those positions, he was the best in the Big Sky at those positions and is now an All-American. How special is this guy?
Incredible. I mean, the athletic talent speaks for itself. You know, he, like you said, I think so. 2017, he was the Big Sky Freshman of the Year, mostly at running back. 2018, he was first team All Conference, unanimous first team All Conference quarterback, and that was mostly for his talent as a runner. He broke the program's single season rushing touchdown record. And my goodness, guys, his teammates really rallied around him because the team needed him at quarterback. He wanted to be a linebacker. He was recruited to be a linebacker, but he said, fine, if that's where the team needs me, let's do it. And, yeah, he went ahead and was spectacular, just a threat to score a touchdown on any given play.
Wow.
And then in 2019, played mostly at linebacker, but a little bit at running back and Wildcat quarterback, and just fun to watch, really. And it sounds like MSU is going to try to keep him mostly at linebacker this season, and I think there was a stretch there. I think 5 or 6 games, and it's 5 or 6 straight games in 2019 in which he had a sack and a touchdown.
Wow.
That was the dual threat that he brought in 2019, and so he missed the end of that season with an injury, and I think MSU coaches kind of want to try to preserve him a little bit and not put too much on his plate so that he's not dealing with those injuries. He also missed time a little bit in 2018 even, so I think they want to let him be the best linebacker he can be this season. So, and it'll be really fun to see what he does, especially at that Mike linebacker spot. It'll be interesting to see what he brings when he's fully dedicated to one side of the ball.
You know what, Colton, I have a new theory of why Montana State didn't want to play last year, and that's because Troy Anderson probably wouldn't have played because of a knee injury.
Correct. I mean, that also worked out as well. I think he would have still redshirted even if Montana State had played during the spring even.
Yeah.
So, I think it certainly worked out for him and the team that he had so much time to recuperate.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking to Colton Poole once again, Montana State beat writer for the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. Another guy on defense here, Colton, Washington transfer Amandre Williams, looks to be an upgraded defensive end. What are the coaches saying about this guy?
Yeah, he came over before the 2019 season and played a linebacker with kind of a hybrid between defensive end and linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was really an integral part of that defense in 2019, but he kind of makes a shift now that MSU is going from a kind of 3-front defense to now a kind of a full committed 4-front defense.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that that's his natural position. That was the position he played in high school, and so he's fully on board with playing at defensive end with his hand in the dirt. So, yeah, I think that both him and Daniel Hardy, who's making that move from outside linebacker to defensive end, those are two really skilled players who can rush the passer, who can help on that run defense, and make big plays from that defensive end spot. So, it's a little bit of an adjustment, I think, as they move to this new defensive system. But I think it'll be those two, and of course, Amandre bringing him up. He has kind of that experience. He's been now with the program for a couple years, and I think he's one that MSU is going to lean on defensively.
Well, as we all know, special teams is a huge deal and always pops up when you need it the most. Montana
Right.
State will be replacing a place kicker, a punter, and a long snapper. And I read that Vegan did not hire a special teams coach. That's a ton of stuff to replace, Colton.
Yeah, and they're shifting responsibilities a little bit, giving each assistant coach this part of the special teams, and kind of figuring things out that way. And Vegan had even said as much that MSU had a special teams coordinator before, and he was willing to keep him on staff. But when B.J. Robertson left, the previous special teams coordinator, he kind of wanted to even things out on as far as the coaching staff. I think 5 assistant coaches on the offensive side of the ball and 5 on the defensive side, and then kind of divvy things up as far as special teams goes. But there's certainly talent though at those spots at kicker and punter. Bryce Slayton was very highly recruited. He's going to be interesting to watch from that punter spot. There's a kicking battle going on right now, and we'll see how that ends up. But you're certainly right though that special teams and Vegan even recognizes this, that there's kind of hidden yardage to be had there sometimes. With those freshmen, those young guys coming in and trying to play those big roles, it'll be interesting to watch how they perform, especially in that first game at Wyoming, an FBS game. We'll have to see how they can perform in those kinds of situations.
From everything I've read, Colton, the Bobcats are ranked number 8 in the FCS polls. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but do you think that's about right?
I think I thought I remember 12. I could be wrong. Somewhere in that neighborhood. And I think the coaches poll came out and they were 11th today. So somewhere around there, and that does feel right. Obviously they made the FCS semifinals in 2019, the last time they played. But they're kind of yet to be seen exactly how things are going to end up with a new coaching staff, a new quarterback. They returned plenty of guys from 2019, but it's a little bit unknown. So that kind of range seems about right for me, especially the number of good teams that come back in the FCS. The North Dakota States, of course, James Madison, but I think Montana State certainly should be in that conversation just based on the skill that they look to bring this year.
Well, Colton, too, looking over the schedule, I'm definitely not going to pretend to be an FCS, very knowledgeable about the FCS, but, at Wyoming, that's a tough start. At Weber State, big one there in Ogden, at Eastern Washington 2 weeks later, at Montana to end the season. And then, of course, kind of a sneaky one, October 23rd, we're all very familiar with Idaho State's quarterback Tyler Vanderwall, as is Brent Vegan, who recruited him to Wyoming, the FCS Newcomer of the Year, I believe, last year, Offensive Player of the Year in the Big Sky Conference, anyhow. Tough schedule for the Bobcats. What are you thinking season prediction-wise here?
Yeah, I think kind of in line with those predictions. I think Montana State could make the FCS semifinals, and whether they're a seeded team like they were in 2019, that might be tough. I think the real coin flip game is going to be at Montana. And of course, there's so much intensity with that comes with that rivalry that's been going on for over 100 years. And it'll be, that game will come back after not having been played last fall. So I think there's even more emphasis or kind of anticipation for that game going into it. Win-loss record, it's tough. I mean, at Wyoming, that's a tough start to the season, but then you get Drake and San Diego in the non-conference, and then at Portland State versus Northern Colorado versus Cal Poly. I mean, that could right there could turn into a 5 win streak. At Weber, that's tough. Idaho State, at Eastern Washington. That's a tough stretch, but then you get Idaho and Montana. They should end up with a winning record, But like you alluded to, especially on the road, that is a tough schedule, and if you can steal one or two of those games, then I think you're sitting in pretty good shape.
Definitely. Well, I can't let you get out of here without a game prediction for Laramie. And have you ever been to Laramie before?
No, and I'm excited to check it out. I've heard great things. Bill Lamberty, the sports information director for Montana State, he went to Wyoming and is a big fan. So. A big fan of the city, so and he's kind of hyped it up for me, so I'm excited to check it out on September 4th.
Definitely. Do you think? What do you think about Vigen coming back, facing Craig Bowl after all these years? And this is a really big game for Wyoming. This is definitely not one the Cowboys are overlooking, because though they got 6 games in last year, it definitely didn't go the way it was supposed to go. So I think the Cowboys are ready to play anybody not named Wyoming and get that taste out of their mouth. So what are your expectations for that first one?
Man, put you
on the spot here, Colton.
Yeah, I know. I'll take I'll predict the home team wins. I think that's a good advantage there. I think the familiarity amongst the coaching staff is kind of a wash. Bull knows Vigen, Vigen knows Bull.
Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation there with Colton Poole. He is the Montana State beat writer for the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. You can read Colton's work and his MSU coverage at BozemanDailyChronicle.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at CPoolReporter. Thanks for joining us today to learn a little bit about Wyoming's opening day opponent, the Montana State Bobcats. We'll be back this week looking at the Northern Illinois Huskies.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.